Another of the key parts that hold humans back is what's on the board right now, and that's the generalized principle around self-sabotage. Now, a lot of people don't know what this means when I first present this. So if you think about, if I sabotage something, that means I purposefully destroy it, okay? So if you always think about like submarines where someone on it will sabotage the exercise, to use a military example. Same thing happens in life and for people, is that they self-sabotage. So they self-deprecate or destroy themselves on certain parts. And this basically stops people from moving forward. And a lot of the time it's unconscious. We've been doing it all our life and we don't really know that it's there. Let me tell you why we've got $2 signs here. We did a study on this about a decade ago where we put up a general manager advertisement. You know, the typical, we are seeking a general manager XYZ, you know, the typical general manager ad that you'd see on the internet or on the paper. And what we did is, and this was for a fictitious job. The job did not exist. We just invented it to test this self-sabotage generalized principle. The first week we put that job up, the general manager ad, we are seeking, etc., and we put the salary, the annual salary for that position at $50,000. Okay, and I can tell you across where we advertised it, we had 161 different CVs and responses applying for the job. Okay, the next week we didn't change anything in the ad. It was still we're seeking, etc., but we changed the annual salary to $250,000. Let me ask you the question. How many do you think we got in the second week? And I can tell you what the answer is. It was 4. Okay, the job didn't change. It was still the same job, but the price per annum changed. So the answer in that is most people looked at it and said, you know what, I'm not worth 250, or only people that get have got XYZ amount of background get 250,000 per annum. Okay, so there was a self-sabotaging point between both of those, which was purely on the dollar amount. Now, why does this show up? This shows up in business. I'll tell you, one of the primary places it shows up is in pricing, okay? How we price. I'll give you an example. I was coaching a well-known franchise that makes sandwiches. And this particular guy that I was coaching he had 2 of these cafes in very primary and expensive shopping centers. Okay, so his rent was really, really high. And when I went and started coaching him, I kind of said, so, told me your rent and showed me your pricing of what all the different sandwiches were. And because it was a franchise, obviously these were all over the country that this guy was living in. And I said, so you're in one of the most high rent places in this particular country. For the people in the regional centres, what do they price their sandwiches at? And he said, pretty much on par. So I went and did some research. We went around and looked at all of the regionals, and he was the same price. And I said, well, look, I got a challenge with that because you're not passing a lot of the costs on to the customer. And his biggest point was that if I put up my prices, okay, my customers are going to go and eat somewhere else. And I said, look, yes, if you put them up by 100%, sure, they're not going to pay double, okay? I do know one thing is that if you put them up 10% or 5% or even 15%, that I bet you, on a $7.95 sandwich, that if they're paying an extra $1, that it's not going to be neither here nor there. Okay, so we did a whole strategy of increasing that guy's pricing, and we worked it out that we wouldn't price him out of the market. And this particular guy had so much self-sabotage after we did this whole strategy, took us hours and hours to do, that night he did this. He went back to the shopping centre at 2 a.m. He woke up in a cold sweat. He was living and breathing this one, and he went back down to the shop and he changed all the prices back to where they were. Okay, he self-sabotaged it. And you know, and the result out of that particular example is the guy didn't move forward because he self-sabotaged. He had a self-worth problem really, and that just showed up in his pricing. Okay. Funnily enough, a few years later, I was working with the same franchise in the same country, in a different part, and we had the same predicament. We actually went and put up their prices on average across their whole range by 12%. Not one customer complained about the 70 or 80 cents price rise. Okay, so, and this guy made annually, the second gentleman made annually based on that one strategy an extra $48,000 a year in net profit just with that one margin strategy. Okay, so once that guy, you know, had a bit of self-sabotage and got over it. So there's two examples of conflicting of people that got over self-sabotage and one that didn't. Okay, so my question is to you, and self-sabotage shows up not only in pricing, I can assure you. It's, you know, not doing the action, procrastinating, getting out of line, going off track. There's lots of different forms of how self-sabotage shows up in humans. And my question to you, and the reason why we've got this as one of my key clips, is what are you doing? How's this principle showed up in you over your life and in your business right now? It's a critical one. You've got to be aware of it to start with, then have someone challenge you on it, okay? It could be me, it could be your spouse, it could be a team member, someone that's going to, when you go off to self-sabotage land, brings you back, okay? Because I know this is, when we're down here doing this one, it's going to hold you back. And I think you've got more, and I think you know you've got more too. So, self-sabotage, let's get over it and let's move forward.